Hi, I'm Bill. I spent several years working in real estate, business, and finance, and what I kept seeing was a disconnect between traditional financial advice and how people actually live, especially millennials. Most advice assumes perfect timing, stable income, and simple choices. Real life is none of that. It's trade-offs, changing priorities, and decisions made with incomplete information. The Millennial Financial Lab from Retire Coast exists to help make those decisions clearer using practical tools, not pressure or hype. Please visit retirecoast.com and check out our Millennial Hub along with all of our Millennial articles. Please stay tuned for a minute and listen to our explanation of what our Millennial Financial Lab is all about. And thank you for coming. I hope that you listen to our podcast and come to our website and take advantage of all of the information and tools that we have to offer to you. Thank you.
So today we're going to dig into a new way of thinking about our financial decisions. We're going to talk about why something called the Millennial Financial Lab is being built and what problem it's trying to solve for so many of us. You know, it all kicks off with this feeling, this question that I think a lot of us have probably asked ourselves at some point. Does the financial advice that's out there actually fit my life? And for many, the answer is a pretty resounding no. It turns out there are some very real reasons for that feeling. So what's really going on here? Well, at its heart, it's what you could call a generational mismatch. The financial playbook that many of us were handed, it was basically written for a totally different economic world, creating this huge gap between the advice we get and the reality we're actually living. And this requires a huge mindset shift. If you're feeling that financial stress, it is probably not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're playing a brand new game with an old, outdated rulebook. The problem is structural. It's not a personal failure. All right, so let's talk about what this new reality actually looks like. I mean, this isn't just a vague feeling, right? The data paints a really clear picture of the economic environment that has shaped a whole generation's financial lives. For so many millennials, stepping into adulthood was like walking straight into a perfect storm. Just think about it. The 2008 financial crisis hits right as people are trying to start their careers. That's followed by a huge expansion in student loans, and then a long, relentless period of rising housing costs. That's a uniquely tough starting line to have. And wow, this chart right here, it just puts that squeeze into sharp focus, doesn't it? You can literally see the gap between how much incomes have grown and how much the cost of homes has just skyrocketed. For a lot of people, that traditional goal of owning a home has been completely outpaced by the economy itself. And on top of all that, you've got the student debt factor. Even if you have what's considered a manageable monthly payment, it fundamentally changes your cash flow. It eats into your flexibility every single month, and that has a real ripple effect on everything, from how much you can save, to whether you can afford to take a career risk, to when you feel ready for other big life decisions. Okay, so when you lay out this new economic reality, it's really no surprise that the old financial rulebook just doesn't work anymore. It often falls completely flat. This slide just lays out the disconnect perfectly. On one side, you have those classic rules we've all heard a million times. Save 20% of your income, buy a house as soon as you can, max out your retirement first. But then you look at the other side and bam, there's reality. Huge student loan payments, insane childcare costs, and jobs that might not have that old school income stability. The old rules just don't know what to do with these massive new variables. And that really gets to the heart of it, you know? These rules of thumb, they're meant to make advice simple, which is great, but in the process, they end up oversimplifying your actual complex life. Your life isn't a rule of thumb, so your financial plan probably shouldn't be either. So all of this leads to a pretty big shift in thinking. The whole idea is to move away from rigid commands and instead focus on getting clarity. It's about shifting from being told what to do to actually understanding how to make the best decision for your unique situation. So what do we actually need then? Well, first off, we need to see the trade-offs clearly. Like if you put an extra $100 a month towards your student loans instead of saving for a down payment, what does that choice actually mean for you in 5 years? Second, we need tools that use our real numbers, not some perfect idealized version. And finally, and this one is huge, it's about giving ourselves permission to make good enough decisions, because chasing that one perfect answer usually just leads to not doing anything at all. And that, right there, is the whole idea behind the Millennial Financial Lab. It's not another advice blog. It's a set of calculators and tools built specifically to help you explore those financial trade-offs for yourself. Now, it's just as important to talk about what this isn't. This isn't financial hype promising you'll get rich quick. It's not influencer advice based on one person's lucky situation. And most importantly, it's not trying to sell you anything. It is a neutral space for you to figure things out. Okay, so what about tech? Where does something like AI fit into all this? Well, it's used very carefully here, as a support tool, not as a boss. It can help you map out complicated scenarios really quickly, showing you how a small change today could ripple out over years. But it's not an authority. It can't ever replace your own personal judgment and your values, which are, the most important part of any big decision. So this all boils down to a new, much simpler way to make these big decisions. Step 1, you see the trade-offs. Step 2, you test out your different scenarios with your real numbers. And step 3, you make an informed choice, one that feels right to you because you have that clarity. And really, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Better financial decisions don't come from more pressure or from trying to follow impossible rules. They come from clarity. The point of information should be to support your choice, not to dictate it. So, we'll just leave you with this to think about. What's that one big financial question in your life right now? And what could you decide? What path could you finally choose if you had just a little more clarity and a whole lot less pressure?